online?
I'm doing it. I'm trying to make sure that happens right now.
You're awesome.
I'm working on it. I try.
I'm late on my post too, but I'm sure I'm gonna have plenty to say by the time I post that day 29.
As much as I can. This is it. I can't. It's not really. It's not. I did it. I did it. I did it. I did it. I'm live, y'all. I am live, and I'm trying to see how to tag you, sis. Trying to see how to tag you, and I don't see how to do it. Because it already has gone live. This is Celebrity Mary, y'all. This is the Bag Lady Revive show, and I'm so excited that y'all are here with me today. I'm all tongue-tied and stuff. How y'all doing? Hi, everybody. Y'all come on in. Come on in. Y'all come on in. Sit down. Everybody get comfortable. I'm so excited about my guests today. We got a really good show going on. Hey, Gerald. Hi, Pam. Hey, Derek. Hi, Kenyatta. Hey, Cecilia. Hi, Willie. Hi, Shayelle. Thank you all so much for joining us. We have such a good show planned for you today. We ready to rock and roll like redneck. We is on our way. We on our way. We coming on with the come on. So listen, y'all know how this goes because we do this every week. We come on here and we talk about the things that matter. And today I am excited to bring to you a young woman who has taken the time to do for you what you wouldn't do for yourself. She has gone to a ton of schools, done incurred a whole bunch of student loans and student debt. She done moved all around the country. She done did all of this just so she can get this information to give to you about how you can help your own children in the schools where they are all around this country. So it is a privilege to me to introduce to some and present to others my good girlfriend, my money school classmate, my good Judy, Miss Janie Patton, honey. Hey, Janie, how you doing?
Hey, how are you, Mary? I'm awesome today.
Good, girl. I am doing really well. All is well. This is it's a good time to be alive. You know, I have been saying that for a very long time. I've been telling people, sorry, y'all, I'm adjusting my volume just a little bit. I've been telling people for a long time that this is a really good time to be alive. We live in a time when you can be in one part of the world, I could be someplace else, and we can come together and help a whole bunch of people who we can see and don't see and in real time. This is an amazing time to be alive. I feel privileged to be here.
Awesome. And I myself, not too far from getting off work, as I am sporting one of my favorite shirts that I like to wear. It says different, not less.
Different what?
Different, not less.
So, okay, good. We're going to get into that. I bet I know why that's one of your favorite shirts. I bet I know why. We're going to get into that. So listen, y'all. This again is the Bag Lady Revive show. I am your host, Celebrity Mary. And you know, around here, we believe that your profit is in your purpose on the Bag Lady Revive show. My guests are all integrating the workplace and the marketplace so they can move from the workplace into the marketplace. And we do this each and every Tuesday at this same time. So you can't miss it. Go ahead and set your reminder right now. So we're here every Tuesday at 6 p.m. We rebroadcast at 9. So if you trying to drive and you can't really get in, because we got a phone number for you to call. You're going to have some questions. You're going to have some comments. We got a phone number for you to call. So you can't do all of that. Don't worry. We'll be right back here at 9 p.m. tonight answering any questions. And we'll be back again on Friday at 12 with the same rebroadcast. So here is the call-in number. You ready? Y'all ready? Y'all write this down. And for those of you who are online with me right this second, and you can see your screen, I'm going to go ahead and post it because, like I said, we be trying to do stuff for y'all. We try to make it as easy for you as possible. So, you know what I'm talking about here. You see what I'm saying? They're like, pow, there you go. There's that call-in number for y'all. It's right there. So that number is 929-205-6099. The webinar ID is 659-069-315. That's for those people who complain that I say it too fast. you know who you is. Some people who shall remain nameless, even though you know exactly who you is. That, and if that number is busy or anything like that, then you can dial 669-900-6833. And that webinar ID is still 659-069-315. So listen, I do want y'all to call in. I want y'all to give me some feedback. Let me know if I'm doing the right thing. Let me know if I'm hitting the marks that you want me to hit. Let me know if we talking about what you want us to talk about. Let me know if you have some suggestions for guests and upcoming shows, and make sure that you stick around until the end for some exciting announcements about business credit and other juicy releases that we got coming this month, January 2019. Oh, I probably should have said that because I could probably use this show again. But don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. I have to give you a caveat. This is probably the only show I know of that comes on and say, listen, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something, honey. This is what there are caveats, warnings, and disclaimers for this show. Do not assume that a person is lying just because you've not ever heard the teaching before now, okay? The opinions expressed on this show are those of the speakers and not necessarily of the show. And any advice that's given is based on personal experience and independent research by the speakers. So engage at your own risk. Tonight, I'm excited to introduce you guys to my guest. Her name again is Miss Janie Patton. I refer to her as a master educator. I don't think she refers to herself in that way, but y'all will see why in a little while. Y'all will see why. And she's an entrepreneur. And this show is titled What the School Systems Don't Want You to Know. Having matriculated 3 children of my own, well, actually 4 children, through the public school system here in the United States, it's a lot of stuff that they don't want you to know. But I can tell you this, and the same thing Jamie had said to us, you're the key that turns the lock to your child's education. Jamie wants you to know that when it comes to your child education, you have options. And I want you to know that these options that we're about to talk about covers the 2 of the 3 legs of the 3-legged stool that we always discuss and that we're always framing our work in here in the Money School, which is economic healing and financial dignity. So before I bring Jamie on, I'm gonna go ahead and state some of these problems for you. And if you watch any of my other shows, you know that the issue is that there are these imbalances and inequities with the way wealth is distributed throughout the world, but particularly here in the United States. And we're going to get into a little bit of that. I'm sure it's going to come up because what this lady has to share with us is evident. The school system is one of the first places where you see these inequities and these imbalances. In fact, when master plans are being created, 10, 20, 50 year, 100-year master plans are being created, they begin in the schools. They start with the schools. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a little bit about the different classes of workers, the poor, the working class, the wealthy, and the elite. I'm going to remind you always, and I've been seeing this information, like I feel like I've been beating this drum for about 2 years now, and I'm beginning to see other people picking up on it. I'm beginning to see other people responding to this particular part of the message. There are children that are being born right now who will never complete a job application or work for a living. Those are the wealthy and the elite. They currently comprise about 5% of the world's population, but they share in about 95% of the world's wealth. Then there's some children that are being born right now who will only work for a living. Those children are born to the poor and the working class, and that's about 95% of the world's population, but they only share in about 5% of the world's wealth. Let me put that into perspective for you. If there was only $100 available for everybody in the world had to share $100. 5 people would get $95 and split that up amongst themselves. And 95 people will get $5 and have to figure out how to split that up amongst themselves. So you see how that works, right? You see how this can be a problem? So we're going to talk about that is some of the framing. I just want to kind of make sure that we're framing this conversation that we're about to have. I want to make sure that you are understanding and that you're clear on what it is that we're talking about and why we're talking about this in the way that we're talking about it tonight. We recognize that race is a factor and is likely a driver in obtaining and maintaining wealth here in the United States. We know that Black families have about $1,700 in wealth. This is as of 2016. That number has changed significantly. It's actually dropped since then. So in the two almost 3 years since this study was done by CNN Money, Black family wealth, the wealth of Black families has dropped from $1,700 to about $1,400. So between 2016 and 1986, it had dropped from 6,800 to 1,700. So that was a big decrease over that 30-year period. Over that same period of time, Latino families dropped from, actually they didn't drop, they stayed the same. They had about $2,000 in wealth, which is still more than what Black families had, right? And white families have about $116,800 in wealth, which is actually up from 102,000 30 years ago. So race, we're gonna go ahead and call that a factor in this situation, okay? We're gonna go ahead and call that a factor. And the other thing that I want us to make sure that we're aware of and remembering as we continue to have this conversation and as we move on in this process is that the way we get money nowadays, we have moved on to a post-employment economy. And what that means is the way we get money is different. It's not, your job is not the primary way of driving income for you anymore. So that being the case, there are a lot of people, not just women, not just Black women, who are moving from the workplace into the marketplace. And y'all know I've been beating this drum now for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. I want to help Black women to become millionaires. And I'm looking forward to the woman that we have on the phone tonight being in that number, being counted amongst those. So I want y'all, like I said, you know how we do it around here. Get yourself something to sip on, honey, and get you a pen and a paper. Take copious notes, because a short pencil is better than a long memory any day. The phone number to call in is 929-205-6099. The webinar ID is 659-069-315. Okay, if that number is busy, call 669-900-6833. Okay, so Miss Jamie.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's bring you on into this here conversation, honey. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What are your, tell us about your credentials. Tell us a little bit about your education, where you're from, where you live, that kind of thing.
Okay, well, I'm originally born and raised in Flint, Michigan. Mm-hmm. I graduated from high school and I pursued my college education in Nashville, Tennessee at Tennessee State University.
The notorious, yes, I knew you were going to do
that. From there, I received my bachelor's degree in speech pathology and a master's degree in public administration. I moved to Florida. I actually began teaching in Nashville once I received my bachelor's. So as I was working on my master's, I started in the public school system there.
Okay.
I started out as a special ed resource teacher for 12th grade, believe it or not.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. You have to tell us about that. When we're gonna circle back. We're gonna circle back. Okay.
So from there, I moved to Florida, Manatee County, which is Bradenton, Sarasota area. Mm-hmm. And I lived down there almost 10 years, and I taught in different sectors of the school system down there, everything except public. So it was private, charter, juvenile, level A, high risk kids, and mental health and behavioral. So I've pretty much taught all across the spectrum of education.
Wow. Okay.
And while
when you say, excuse me, let me stop you for a moment. When you describe these different sectors, what do you mean by that? Like, who were these children in institutions?
Some of them, yes.
Okay.
Like for instance, when I taught for juvenile and the high risk program, they were actually in jail. So they had to complete an education program while they were in jail. The mental health behavioral facility, it was a residential and a day school. Where the residential kids were actually placed there for a period of time. They lived there and received their services there. The day school children were actually a part of group homes where they were bused in to attend school.
Okay.
A lot of them had, a lot of them were labeled with mental health and behavioral disorders.
Wow. Okay. All right. So you did that work in Florida. And you were there for a while, and then you moved again.
Yes, but before I moved, I was actually promoted in Florida, where I was no longer a teacher, but I was a special education coordinator. So I was the one who would actually do a little testing, followed up with a psychologist to actually determine whether or not a child was eligible for an IEP
Mm-hmm.
and if they required extra services to be successful in the classroom.
Okay.
And because I had taught in so many sectors, I became they call it exceptional education in Florida. So I was the exceptional education coordinator for alternative sites, meaning any of the sites that were connected with the school board, but they were not actually a part of the school board. They were contracted sites.
Okay. Would
like,
that include,
like the kids that were in lockdown facilities, they still had to contract the education program for those students.
Right. Okay. Wow. I know I'm not at this part of the interview yet. I actually have a list of questions to ask you, but I'm listening to this and I'm thinking about this. And what did you observe? If just an observation, what is the thing that stood out to you the most about the populations of children that you were working with when you were doing this work, that particular work you're describing?
What stood out to me the most is that there were not enough people willing to work with those children at their level. They were too quickly to write them off. So they would rather label them and put them somewhere else than to actually figure out what the issue is with this child, because a lot of time it's environmental issues. The autonomy of it. If a child is not eating properly, if they don't feel safe, then it's not likely that you're going to be able to get through to them to teach them something when they're on fight or flight mode all the time.
Right.
So a lot of the issue is that there were not enough compassionate people in the field willing to work with those children. They rather send them a label and send them off to an alternative school somewhere.
Wow, sis, that's a lot. That is a lot.
So a lot of times we end up with children who have IEPs that really don't even need one. They just have one because during that time it was more convenient to put them out of the population where their scores didn't count against the mainstream population, or they didn't have to deal with those behaviors in the classroom rather than actually getting to the root of the problem.
So I actually have some experience with that I will share with you a little bit later. But I wanted to, we gonna talk about that. We are going to talk about that.
Yeah.
I wanted to go ahead and let you finish running down your credentials, because I'm telling y'all, this lady is credentialed. She got degrees. Look, it's one right down her shoulder. Y'all see it? She got another degree. She just went and got another degree.
It's it right here.
Yes, right here. She just went and got another one. Yeah. So you did that. You got the promotion. You were kind of, what is it? How would I say? Marshaling resources. Oh, pardon me. Sorry about that. I don't know how that even happened, but so you were marshaling resources. You're not really working directly with the children at this point, right? You're kind of coordinating and making sure everyone has what they need.
Correct.
Okay. So you do that, you do all of that, and then what happens?
Well, then my husband and I moved to Atlanta. So here we are in Atlanta. And I ended up going back into the classroom.
Okay.
Because when you move around, no one wants to actually take you in where you are. You got to kind of pay your dues and work your way back
start over. Yeah.
Not a problem, because when I moved to Atlanta, I actually got a pay increase, even though I got a demotion. So,
girl, that happened to me. That was crazy.
So they paid me more to demote me back into the classroom. So I was okay with it.
Yeah. I get it. Well, I'm sure you would need it. If you're noticing that there's not enough compassion in the classroom, you must have been needed there, and you were being rewarded thusly. The universe knows what to do. The universe knows when we know not. The universe knows what to do.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys move back to Georgia. You start working in the classrooms. And then what happens?
So I work for the Cobb County school system. Love where I am. I really do. I love where I am. My administration is highly supportive. My teachers, they have my back. We work together as a team. because a lot of people don't realize when adults bicker, the students hear it, and that's when they run amok.
Yeah.
But when we come together as adults and let them know, we know that we're outnumbered, but we're not letting you have your way. Then it's a more comfortable environment to work in. So I'm very comfortable where I work. I love my students. I love my administration. Just everything about where I work is it's the ideal position if you want to be a teacher.
I love it. So when did you go get this other degree, this accounting degree? Because I saw that you have a master's in accounting as well as a master's in public administration, as well as the bachelor's degree for the special education, and I'm assuming whatever other certifications that come with specializing like that. Is that correct?
Correct. I am certified as a math teacher for middle grade, and I'm also special ed certified. So I'm certified in adaptive curriculum as well as general curriculum.
Okay, I don't know what none of that means.
The difference between the two is the general curriculum are the kids who actually assimilate or are interrelated into the regular ed classrooms with extra support. The adaptive curriculum.
Womp. This is Charlie Brown's teacher talking. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm in the 4th grade. Please explain to me what that means.
Okay, let's say you have an IEP, but your disability does not necessarily hinder your learning. You just need a little extra focus or a little bit more support. You will still have class with regular general ed students.
Okay, so
there may be 2 teachers in your classroom though, because one is there for support.
Okay, got it. So I'm good now. I done caught back up. I'm special.
To me, yes, you are. You are very special to me, Mary.
Oh, thank you. You're so sweet. You're so sweet. So listen, let me shift gears a little bit. So you're doing all of that. You got all these degrees. You've really devoted your life and your career to helping to bring the next generation, helping to form the perceptions and educate the next generation. And but you're on this show because you also realize that the workplace might not be the spot. Like you're beginning, because you're still in the workplace and you're an entrepreneur, you actually are kind of integrating the two of those things. Tell us, let me ask you, when did you first consider moving from the workplace to the marketplace? Like what happened? Were there any special circumstances around that? Did you have to overcome something in order to do that? Tell us about that journey.
I did actually. When I first moved to Georgia, I was working in a different county. I just did not quite enjoy it as much as I do where I am now. So when I decided to end my journey in that last county, I had actually given up on teaching. I took early retirement and walked away from teaching. So that's where the second master's in accounting came from. Because I pursued another area that will still stick to my expertise, which is math. Okay. I love teaching math, middle school, high school, college level. I've always been good with numbers. So I was like, well, I'll take this opportunity to walk away from teaching and still use my skills in math in another area. So I got a second master's in accounting. Okay. And I can work with adults. Okay. To children. Okay. And that worked out fine. I still actually run a tax business. Okay. So I do taxes and I do business accounting. Okay. So that's kind of like my side gig. And then somewhere down the line, family issues arose. Okay. And I had to go back into the workplace. So being an entrepreneur at that time was not quite enough money for me to survive on. So I needed another job. And so I went into DeKalb County, got hired into DeKalb County, got placed in my middle school and absolutely loved it. However, because I know, I guess you could say, the mission of the public school system, and I'm okay with following rules, for my job. But knowing that there's a bigger entity to closing the gap, and those kids are just not getting it in public schools. A lot of the IEPs require that the children are served so differently to be met at their level to grow them that it's almost impossible to group all of these children with the same learning disability in the same classroom and say that you're going to teach when they all have these IEPs, because an IEP is an individualized education plan.
Correct.
So everyone's plan is different because their levels are different. So you can't expect to teach a group of children with disabilities just because they have the same disability at the same level. And that's where we're losing them. They're falling through the cracks. They're being pushed along because of their age and their grade. They're just being pushed through the cracks and they're not learning anything. And so they're coming out of high school with these participation certificates, like, yay, thank you for attending school
for 12 years. For 12 years.
And you still don't know what to do with life.
Correct. So that is then where your other business. So I know you're doing taxes. Your other business. What's the name of the other business? Your education business.
Jaime Patton Inc.
Okay, and so you're a consultant. You're an education consultant, and you, through Janie Patton Inc., you are helping parents to take control of their children's IEPs. Like what is it exactly that you're able to help with? What is it exactly that you're doing with Janie Patton Inc.?
Well, a lot of parents don't even realize that they have rights to these IEPs, even though parental rights and responsibilities are given and discussed in IEP meetings. It's almost like water that went in one ear and out the other. So
I can speak to that. I have 3 children. 2 of them had IEPs. One of them was in gifted, and one of them was considered to have special needs. When I was called to the school for either of them, right? And I was a very young parent, especially with my first child. I was very young when my first child was born, and I didn't really know a whole lot. And I would get called to the school. This child was in gifted, but I was getting called to the schools for behavior issues. And I really didn't know what my rights were. I didn't know what my child's rights were. What I knew though was that I was the only thing that I knew was that I was the protection between him and whatever the administration had going on. And I cannot tell you how many times I went to the school and because they called me about something. And when I got there and said, well, what happened? They had no answers. They couldn't tell me what happened. So I asked my child, and he starts telling this story, and they're all like, oh, well, we didn't know that that's what had happened.
That's a problem. That
was a big problem. It wasn't until my other child got into high school, and I was actually from Florida. I'm now in Georgia, and they there was, they needed to do another evaluation and all this other stuff. And the person who was supposed to do it was unavailable. And they sent someone who was working on his, it's not a master's, it's like a master's certificate. It has another name. Yeah, it's another specialist degree that he was working on. And one of the things he's a substitute. He's a substitute psychologist for all intents and purposes, and looked me in my face and he said, listen, you are the key that turns the lock for your child's education. Now, I'm telling you this because I want you to sit down and read this IEP, because he didn't agree with some of the things that were there. And he was making some different recommendations. And he wanted me to sit down and read it so that I could speak from a point of intelligence as I'm going in and not be pushed around and bullied by believing my own belief that the people who I'm there with are the authority. I forgot to give the call-in number again. So again, this is a call-in show. If y'all want to call in, you got some questions, the number is 929-205-6099. And the webinar ID is 659-069-315. If you want to call in and weigh in on this conversation or speak to Miss Jamie, I'm going to run over here to Facebook real quick and see if we got some questions or comments. And I'm gonna let you, while I look for these questions and whatnot, I'm gonna let you, Dr. Don, you know what? I don't even know what to say about you sometimes. I don't even know, where she come from? What happened to you, girl?
You know what her problem is? What? She got the wrong name. Her last name should be toilet paper, okay? Because she the shit.
Oh, wow.
She the shit, okay?
Hey,
Dr. Don is everything. She gives
she
me
is
life.
all that. She is all that. So JT said he was one of those kids. And he also asked, what is the public school mission? I think that's a good question. And Dr. Don, you sit your butt down somewhere. Get off this page over here messing with. We over here just talking. She talking mad trash. I don't know if you can see the comments, but she is talking mad trash in these comments. I don't even know what to do.
I'm sure I get to read it later. I can't wait.
So in IEP, she did say it seems like she was asking to describe what an IEP is. So if you would do that for us, I know we said the words, but if you could please explain what an IEP is and share the public school mission, that would be great.
Okay, so an IEP again is an individualized education program, and it is designed for students who meet the eligibility requirements to receive what we call a label. I don't like to actually use that word because I don't like to label my children. But once they meet requirements where they've had several
what kind of label? What kind of label?
There are several labels. Okay. From specific learning disability to speech impairment to occupational therapy, physical therapy.
What's the difference between those two, occupational and physical therapy? Like, what would be the difference? If you could give a quick example of the ones that you're naming, because again, Charlie Brown teacher, I don't know what we're talking about right now.
Okay, so specific learning disability would be the child who has difficulties learning regular curriculum at the curriculum pace. They may have a processing deficit or an expression deficit, or some type of dyslexia or something.
I understand dyslexia. I ain't understand that other stuff, but I do understand dyslexia. Talk to me like that.
Okay, so it's just something that is going on mentally with them that they're not processing at the same speed that is being taught.
Got it. Next one.
Then there's speech impairment.
Okay, so they might stutter.
They might stutter, or they might not even speak to you on grade level. And what I mean by grade level is I've had an 8th grader before who uses the word me for I.
Oh, wow.
Can me go to the bathroom? You know, so she was in speech therapy to get her language skills up to par. Articulation issues where you have people who don't pronounce correct sounds. So it impairs their ability to communicate because people are constantly asking them, what did they say?
Right. And what got it. Okay. What's the next one?
Occupational therapy.
Okay.
Usually that's just to tune into fine motor movements. Those are the kids who may write real big still, or they need help holding that pencil and making sure that they're writing on the line and stuff like that because they're all over the place. So nobody can read that. You're in 8th grade. Stop that. So,
right. Okay.
Physical therapy is for your physically needy children. I have a student now.
Wheelchair or walk with braces or something, right?
Right. More so the child that will walk with braces, because that would be the child that would actually be able to benefit from the physical movement of physical therapy.
Okay.
Then, of course, you have your mild intellectual disabilities. Most of those children, you don't even know that they have a disability until you realize that they can't read or write regular sentences. Got it. Because their conversation is just as normal as everyone else's, and they fit into the grand scheme of things right along with everyone else.
They're really good at mimicking.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then, of course, there's the moderate intellectual disabled and the severe.
Okay.
Those are your children who are in their own classroom. We call it. So they would be in their own classroom. Self-contained is what they usually call those environments. So you're teaching them life skills. Okay. Because they're not going to function to keep up with grade level curriculum. So them life skills, how to count the days of the week, how to keep track of their days of the week and what's doing, how to tie their shoes. Stuff like daily life skills.
Yeah. Okay.
Then we have other health impairment. Other health impairment is the label that you would get if you have something else going on like ADHD.
Okay, or emotional. What was it? Emotional. What did they
Emotional
call it?
behavior
Yeah,
disorder.
yeah.
Those
EBO.
EBD.
Yeah, that. I mean EBD. Yes, I remember that one. Yeah, yeah. JT.
Usually they're in a self-contained environment too. However, I have had children function in a regular classroom who's had that label.
I witnessed that. JT said, that's what I didn't understand. I had an IEP, but I was still in normal classes. I got too opinionated with teachers and I was always too manic. Every test I scored off the charts. It never made sense to me. I get it. I get it. I have encountered some adults who seem very high functioning, but when you engage them a little bit, you can tell there's a little bit, they're a little bit off in some areas. There's something some things are not quite connecting in the way that we expect it to.
And usually all that means is their coping mechanisms are low.
Okay.
Where their stressors are high, but they don't know how to cope with them, so they act out.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So what if you have a child in your home who is having issues in the classroom? You're at home and this is someone who is, you're able to interact with them fine. When you guys are in social settings, they interact just fine. But when they get into the classroom, there is an issue, but they don't have an IEP. What if you're dealing with something like that? Should a parent go and ask for an IEP? Should they ask for an evaluation? And if they do, what should they expect?
That's not necessarily something you actually need to have evaluated, because a lot of times it's just the environmental issue. If that child is not having any other issues other than in the classroom, it could be that confinement piece.
Okay.
You know how some people are claustrophobic. So when you tell a child they have to sit in this classroom for this length of time and sit in that chair and don't move.
I never considered that. I've never even heard anybody. That makes a lot of sense to me, because even if you're on your job, you can get up and move around if you need to. Oh, I have a call.
Absolutely. So why is it that, because even as teachers, I mean, if I have to use the restroom, I'm going to go next door and tell my team teacher, hey, I need to use the restroom. Can you stand in the hallway and monitor my class until I get back? Why don't our children have that same flexibility to move around?
Right. So I'm trying to figure out how to get my call-in listener on the line, because I do have I have somebody who is trying to call in. So I'm trying to answer your call, caller. I am trying to, I don't know why it's not allowing me to do that. Hold on. Yeah, I am, I don't know what's happening. I cannot choose the caller. Maybe the caller has, I don't know. Maybe the caller has disconnected and maybe that's why I can't select them anymore. But if you tried to call and couldn't get through or something like that, try again and I will try and answer as soon as I see it. But right now I cannot select you. It says that there is total one phone call in listener, but I am not able to select that person so they can speak.
Oh, wow.
They hung up. Okay. So
yeah, so they can also ask their question in the comment section as well, so we can make sure that we do get that answer.
So we get the yeah. So if you're not able to get through, please do ask your question in the comment section, and we will, Miss Jamie will answer. We will answer. So yeah, that confinement thing that we were just talking about, that claustrophobia, the fact that children are often not treated like they are people. They're treated like they're some species separate and apart from, distinct from adults. And my position has always been that if you feel it, they do too. Like, I don't understand why it's so difficult. I have never, so if I had my druthers and if I had the money to do it back then, the three of my children would have gone to the Montessori schools, because I like the Montessori style of teaching, where you basically the children are kind of allowed to say, hey, this is where I am. This is what I can do. And the teacher, the system builds from there, as opposed to them having to fit into a model that's really not working for them.
Right.
Same with, or similar with homeschooling. If I had a child now, I don't know what would have to happen for that to happen. But if Jesus left the throne and insisted that Mr. Ellis and I had to have a baby and we had a child, because I mean, like some extraordinary things would have to happen for that to go through. I would much prefer, I am certain that I would be homeschooling my child. I wish that my grandchildren were able to be homeschooled right now. Like I have so little confidence in the education system. I worked for nonprofits for a very long time. I worked in the public space for a long time. I'm aware of how master planning works. I am aware that prisons are built based on children entering kindergarten in certain neighborhoods and certain time spans. That is how the school to prison pipeline was even built. It wasn't coined that way when they built it. Somebody observed it and said, hey, this is a school to prison pipeline, as opposed to a school. So it kind of started out school to industry pipeline. It started out kind of school to, work pipeline. And then it seemed like they figured out that that they could make more money for themselves if they went school to prison pipeline. So I'm listening to you on that. I'm listening to you on that.
And that's a major part of why I started Janie Patton Inc. Okay. Because I observed that same pipeline going on. And it's more so because our kids being raised in the environments that they come from, especially those inner city kids, they don't really have anyone in their environments that are telling them that they can be better than what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And it's not that parents don't care. Understand that, because I deal with a lot of parents. I have dealt with parents who didn't care, but I deal with a lot of parents currently who work a lot, and they're working a lot just to keep a roof over their kids' heads. Right. So they're not, engaging in their homework after school and all of that. They're at work. So they're depending on and trusting their children to do the right thing. But as children with too much freedom and not enough guidance, obviously they're not going to do the right thing. They're children.
They're children. And they don't even have the great girl. Okay, so I do have a caller. I don't see how to bring you on. So caller, if you could click the Zoom link, I will post the Zoom link in the chat, and that will allow me to be able to select your name. So apparently I can't do call in the way that I thought I could do call in on this format. So there is a video going around on Facebook right this second as we speak of a grown ass man punching a little black girl in the face. I'm not being hyperbolic. He literally balled up his fist and punched a little black girl in the face. And I had I heard the doorbell, but I don't see who joined.
I definitely saw that. I saw that video.
Okay. So I ain't tripping. Okay.
All right. You didn't. You weren't tripping. We had a whole class discussion about it, 7th period today.
Yeah. So and let me tell you something. There's grown men on my page, right on my wall right now, and I hope they're watching. I hope they're listening. I left that shit up there because you should be embarrassed and ashamed of yourselves. That are saying, well, them little girls were savages. Them little girls was this. The moment he balled up his fist and punched that girl in her face, he lost all credibility. That is why the police arrested him. He actually literally committed a crime. And these people are saying, well, they should, one person had the audacity, the nerve, and the unmitigated gall to lay it at the feet of women like me who are encouraging girls to behave this way, as if I'm going around saying, hey, y'all go to the mall and fuck with some white people. What I am saying is there is nothing that this child could have done, and it's on video. You see what happens. There's nothing that this child even did that warranted that response. And I bring it up because, as we were just talking about, people kind of see children. They don't even have enough gray matter to make decisions of safety, just to keep yourself safe. This is a grown ass man. And maybe she just assumed, like I did, that no grown man would think that the appropriate response to whatever it was that she had done or said was to ball up his fist and punch her. But she doesn't even have enough gray matter. If she wanted to enter into a contract, she couldn't. If she wanted to finance a car, she could not. If she wanted to vote, she could not. You know why? Because children don't have enough life experience to be able to make those kinds of decisions for themselves. Okay, so Dr. Don is saying the caller needs to be made a panel, but it's not giving me the option, Dr. Don. It just says one phone call in listener, but it's not allowing me, like I can't see the person in order to promote them to a panelist or to give them the ability to speak. Gerald says there's an educational system for the elite and one for everyone else. I'm glad you brought that up, Gerald, because
yes, absolutely, Gerald.
About that, huh?
Absolutely, Gerald.
We went in the opening when I was being, beat about the head about for making the distinction and sharing that there are different classes of people. The elite being one. The elite being one. One of the things that we know is that the elite are not educating. Okay, Dr. Don. Okay, thank you. The elite being one of those ways of classes of people, their education system is very different, and they're being taught very differently than our children are. This is why when you see these, when you see the ads, if you ever see an ad for, because you don't often see ads for them, you might see a brochure if you're fortunate enough to be around one of those places or those folks. You might see a brochure. This is why they are learning the arts of equestrianism. This is why they're playing, sophisticated games like polo. This is why they're not being told, go out here and lay your body on the line, which is essentially what our education system is teaching our children. Even though they're not saying, go out here and, everybody go out here and, be police officers and firefighters and all of this other stuff. They are saying you're the front line. You are the doctors. You are the workers. And then they make you believe that there is another hierarchy, which within the all of those frontline first responder type positions.
Correct.
Thanks, Diva. So yeah, but it's the caller would have to come in on the Zoom line and not the phone line in order for me to be able to bring them in like that. So thank you, ladies. I appreciate that. So Jamie, speak to that for me, please. Time is flying. This is ridiculous.
Okay, the interesting part is everything that you said is true. That's why Jaime Patton Inc. was born. Mm-hmm. Because and a lot of it being our race, because like I said, we're more likely to be labeled than our white counterparts. Black children are more likely to have IEPs than their white counterparts. They're likely to be consequenced for the same actions than their white counterparts. Whether it be a detention, in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, referrals, whatever the case, for the same action, we're going to get more consequences than our white counterparts.
God,
so
yes.
That being a part of the education system as well, we have more of our kids on IEPs than their white counterparts.
Yes.
White kids are more likely to get tested for gifted because of their behavior, because they're not being challenged.
They're acting out. They're not misbehaving.
But our kids, guess what I learned?
What?
After all these years of teaching, our kids act out for the same reason.
What? Girl, you kidding? You mean to tell me these children are just inherently bad? You mean to tell me they just are not criminals born that way? What?
No, these are highly intelligent children who have been told all their lives they're bad. And after you tell somebody something so many times, they'll start to believe it.
They believe it. So parents, that is an important message. Parents, please stop telling your children that they're bad. Please stop calling they bad asses. Please stop telling them how no good they are. Please stop telling them how they act like this one. Please stop telling them all these different things. Please stop fucking up your kids' identities. Please stop it. Stop taking out your frustrations on your children. Someone said, I saw a meme on Facebook recently. And Laura says parents must be involved. Don't accept that shit. We can challenge schools to place our students in gifted. It's not based solely on test scores. You're an educator too, right, Diva? Isn't that where you're getting your PhD is in education? So I remember some of this stuff, like as I was coming up, I remember it was extremely offensive to me to hear people, and it still is, for people to refer to their children as bad. Like, stop that. I knew there was something wrong with that. I knew that these children were not bad. I knew they weren't bad. I knew that that there was a reason. Everything comes from someplace. I saw a meme on Facebook a couple of days ago that said, and it wasn't really a meme. I think it was just someone made a comment, but it was in the big letters, and it said, "Stop taking out your front." Okay, she says she's a professor and she teaches in the community. The status said, "Stop taking out your frustrations on your children, and if you do, you need to apologize." They don't know why you're frustrated. They don't know. Children believe that they're bad if you tell them you're bad. I mean, think about it. They believe everything you tell them. You're the one who feeds them. You're the one who clothes them. You're the one who provides them with a place to live. They trust you. They trust you for their very lives, and they believe everything that you tell them. So if you tell them that they're bad, guess what they're gonna do? If you tell children that they're not smart, if you tell children, if you start telling them things that are, oh, okay, so I got Jules on. Okay, good, cool, Jules, thank you. If you tell children that they have a say, if you tell children that what they have to say is important, they will speak. Yes. You still gotta listen, but you gotta offer them the opportunity to speak. I'm gonna go ahead and add a caller to our call. This is Miss Julie Wood, another good friend of mine who also is in the education space. Jules, can you hear us? Okay, trying it again. Jules, can you hear us?
Hi, I see Julie joined.
I see Jules has joined. Jules, you on camera. I hope you're okay with that.
I'm gonna laugh, but yeah, I'm okay with that because I have something I really want to share about this discussion.
Okay.
I battled the school system for probably about 10 years with my son, who's now 24 and only has an 8th grade education. It's hard to get him back. My son was smart, but because he was one of those school to prison pipeline kids, I battled teachers line, principals line on me, administrator, everybody just lined so they could make him look a certain way. When I moved him from one school to the other, the people from the other school would be at the table so they could make sure the next school continued what was going on at the last.
Sure did.
Okay. You've witnessed that as well, Jamie?
I sure have.
Wow.
So one of the reasons I wanted to come on is to let parents know, one, if your child is having behavior issues in school, and this is them training your child to be a certain kind of child, the referrals are always going to have the same wording on them. And it gets in your child's head because that's what's always being said about your child. So your child starts to act like what they say. But if the IEP actually is a way to protect your child from being expelled from school. So you want to get the IEP. But here's the kicker that I didn't know that I wish I had. You can sue the schools for violating your child's IEP. The moment they don't do what they should be saying, and I could have sued 8 schools and didn't know it. So I really want parents to know that. I'm working with one of my clients now. I'm a grant writer and a nonprofit development consultant. Plug. Anyway, and one of the things I'm asking her to do, which I will say it's either DeKalb County or Cobb, I think it's Cobb, was looking for a parent-student liaison kind of person that goes to the meetings with the parents. We need those people. Stuff that should be in the IEP, like a safe person they can go to, which a lot of times, well, Georgia is a little different because you got a lot of Black folk in the black school
This is
system.
true.
But in Florida, I had to deal with white people. And my family's half white, so I'm not racist, but I recognize
But
racism.
Florida is very racist, especially North Florida. Very, 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 there's still some very institutional things going on in that system. Professor Cassius says you can contest a referral. Parents, you can contest a referral. She said they follow your children to college, so get them removed.
I did everything. I did. They would
But
get
we
mad.
also just established too that you were in a place where do you mind sharing? You shared something with me once that was shocking. About the first interaction that your child had at 8 years old with these.
Oh,
yeah.
That the principal of the school was a member of the KKK, her and her husband, and I took my child to school, and I just happened to be on the way back that way, and I get a call from her to tell me that my son was being suspended for a day because he accidentally stepped on the intern's foot, who had just the day before in a meeting told me that she loved working with my son. But mind you, I've been battling with this principal because she kept trying to find things she could do against my son. Now, one of the things that happened, I used to be very politically involved, is I pissed off the KKK.
3 minutes.
So okay, I'm gonna hurry up. KKK went after my son. Anyway, when I got there, they lied and said my son had turned desk over and all kind of stuff. Well, my son had a stroke when he was 4, so he had left side weakness. It was physically impossible for him to turn those heavy desks over. But I had to go through. I won the battle in the end. She had to apologize and remove the suspension. But my son got suspended. It went from 1 day to her suspending him for 10 days. And that was one of those occasions when I moved him from the school, they sat to the table to make sure the next school continued what he said. So, wow. But I just, my whole intention is to let people know you got to stand up for your child, because teachers do lie, principals do lie. Everybody lies if they want your child. I don't care whether they black, white, or green, because I've had black ones lie too. So, and sue. Find you an attorney. I would love to do a class action lawsuit and sue, because if they violate the IEP, that's violating Section 504 of the U.S. Code, whatever it's called. I can't.
I know what you mean. I don't know what it is, but I know what you mean.
I know what it is.
Okay, Jules, thank you so much for calling in. I'm going to move you back to attending now. Thank you for joining us.
I got to go pick up my daughter, but I just wanted to make sure parents knew they do have rights and they do have a recourse.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Jules. Take
care.
God bless. God bless you.
Thank you again, Ms. Jules. That was awesome information, and it was very accurate, because that was the other portion that I was telling you about, parents not knowing their rights. If they feel like their child is still failing in the curriculum that's designed for them to participate in, the first thing you need to do is, first of all, go sit in class and make sure that every one of those supports and accommodations that are put in place on that IEP are being used in the classroom.
That's a big deal. The accommodations are a big deal. So I remember, when I was dealing with the first IEP, first of all, I didn't even realize that gifted was considered a part of the special education program. Yes. I didn't realize that he had an IEP. No one ever said, here is your child's IEP.
And that was wrong, because you should have been a part of the developmental process of that IEP.
That is not what happened. My son ended up actually being recommended for that because he was acting out in class. And he had a veteran teacher who had, by then this lady had been in the classroom for over 30 years. And she recognized, he's extremely articulate, very bright, really sharp. And she recognized that he was bored. And she recognized that what she was teaching in that classroom was not enough of a challenge. And she referred him for the IEP for gifted. What I was told is my son was being referred for gifted. And of course, I'm like, yay, my baby gonna be gifted, right? So,
and did anyone ever send you a consent to have him evaluated?
I'm sure that I signed something. I'm sure of it. What it is, I don't know. When it happened, I don't know. Did they send it home? I don't know. I don't remember going to the school and sitting down with anyone and having anything explained to me. I just remember that this is what was happening. And he was very fortunate. My son, again, this was a kid who, I mean, this boy could not fart without somebody going, look what he did. Look at him, you know? And I would end up at the school. And when I get there, my kid is sitting in the corner, you know, pouting, and they're telling me how horrible he is. And when I say, well, you know, to him, well, what happened? And he begins to tell the story, the whole mood changes. First of all, because it was so important to me that he be able to communicate. When he was very young, we just didn't do baby talk. We just did not do that.
I didn't do it with fun either.
Yeah, it was, I understood, even though I was very young, the thing that I knew for a fact was that I needed for my child at the time, to be able to communicate. I thought that was the most important. I don't know why I knew that, but I knew that was the most important gift I could give him, was that of communication. And he'd be sitting, he wouldn't say anything. Once they said he was in trouble and he tried to explain, they shut him down. He would just sit quietly until I came. He'd be pouting, he'd be upset. But when I got there, he knew that when my mama get here, all this gonna get fixed. Your children should know that. His mama, he has no idea. I don't think my son to this day knows how scared I was every time I walked into one of those meetings. I don't think my son knows to this day how difficult these things were for me. And I would be pissed off with him on my way to the school because of what they said to me on the phone. But the thing that I did was the promise that I made to myself, and it wasn't a conscious promise, but to me, it was fair treatment was important. And I had said to him that you're allowed to say what you need to say. You just got to be respectful. You are allowed to tell me whether or not you agree with something. You're allowed. And he took that to school with him and they didn't like it. And when I would get called there, girl, it would just be the worst thing until I get there. But my baby knew when I got there, it was going to be okay for him. He ended up never being suspended any of those times that they ever called me to come again. In fact, I don't think he's ever been suspended. He may have had an indoor suspension from time to time. And even then, I remember one time they called me, he's on indoor suspension. He beat up this little boy who's much smaller than him. Get there, and here's the story. They're on indoor suspension. The coach is like, let's go outside. We're going to play horse. We're going to play ball or something. Like, it wasn't even organized. They took it upon themselves, the kids did, to play a game of horse. And the little boy didn't like that my son won. And he starts trying to fight him. He is smaller than my son. So my son pushed him down a couple of times. This kid picked up a bottle and broke it and was trying to cut my son. At that point, my son beat him up. Now,
okay, you had every right to.
Now they're in the office and they're trying to, they want to suspend my son for beating up this smaller kid, even though they're the same age. When they find out that the boy broke a bottle and wanted to come after my son, they were both 11 years old at the time. They wanted to call his mother and wanted me to press charges against this lady's 11-year-old baby because he broke a bottle. Again, no gray matter. Now, in that instance, because no one was hurt, I just could not make that work in my brain. I couldn't call the police on this boy. If my son had been injured, it would have been a different story. But it wasn't. My son handled it. It was done. The coach is the one who was the problem. He wasn't watching the children.
And again, can you kind of see where I'm going with that the environmental aspect? What made that little boy feel like that should have been his first act of defense?
I'm sure so. Girl, we lived
he learned that from somewhere.
Yeah, we lived in the hood. I told you I was a young parent. We lived in the hood. I lived what we could afford to pay. Professor Cassius says now they're labeling Black boys with ADD to prescribe Ritalin and Adderall, which increases estrogen levels.
And a lot of times though, Mary, it's not even the fact that these children have ADHD. They just don't fit into the grand scheme of the model of the prison to pipeline education system.
Agreed. And that is why
our kids, and again, this is what we were talking about when we were saying that they're more intelligent than they want to give them credit for. Our kids know that this is a prison to pipeline system.
Yes.
They're rebelling against it. That's why they act that way at school.
Agreed. They're bucking. And you know what?
They
Someone
are
else
smarter than us. We conform to it.
exactly.
They're bucking the system. They're like, I'm not going to let you do this to me.
So we had a conversation. Gosh, who was that? Was it me and Dr. Don? Dang. I don't mess around. I lost my train of thought. It'll come back to me though. It'll come back to me about that very thing. That the children know. They know they are bucking a system because it's obvious. It's like the adults are the ones who are afraid. Children ain't really scared.
And they're growing up in the information age. They're finding out everything early.
Everything. They ain't never scared. So we're the ones who are afraid. And it's true. I remember my son being 15 years old. This dude's like 6 feet tall and he had a full beard. And I was terrified every time he left the house because I didn't know if my baby was going to make it back home. Because when people see him, they don't see what I see. I still have, it's funny, on my phone, like the faces, I just changed their one dial faces from their baby pictures, their little children pictures, because that's how I see my children. And when I tell you I done had them people for a long time, I've had them people for so long. They don't look.
And more importantly, you've been protecting them for a long time.
I have.
You've been advocating for them for a long time. And that's a lot of what parents are missing in that IEP piece, to know that they have those rights to advocate for their child. They have the right to sit in those meetings when those principals, administrators, and teachers say, this is what's going on, and this is what we want to do, and this is what we want to write. You have the right to say, no, you're not going to write that about my child. Right. That is untrue, and I don't agree with it.
So give us a scenario. Have you seen that play out? Have you been able to walk someone through that kind of a process? Have you been able to do that with Janie Patton Inc?
I have been able to walk people through several processes. Okay. Last school year was my motivation for starting this company.
Okay.
I was able to remove 3 of my students from their IEPs before they went to high school. Because that is ultimately what the goal of the IEP is to provide enough support to help that child successfully operate on grade level to where they don't need these supports anymore.
Right.
However, it has been used more so as a crutch.
And it seems like a penalty.
Yes, a penalty and a crutch, because if they graduate from high school with this IEP still, then depending on which classes they took to graduate, they may not get a full diploma.
They may not get a what?
A full diploma. For instance, in Florida, they gave away 2 different types of diplomas. If you acquired all of your credits, then you would get a standard diploma. If you did not acquire all your credits, but you just aged out of school, then you got what they call a special ed diploma, in which you couldn't do anything with except go get a job. Because you could not enroll into any college, university, or vocational program with a special ed diploma. It had to be a regular standardized diploma.
So what recourse would someone have? So you know what? I'm remembering that my son and cousins had a classmate who had a diploma like that. Now she was able eventually to get some kind of a vocational license.
Well, a lot of them end up going to get their GEDs or something so that they can push forward.
So do you use that to go and get the GED?
No, you get a GED before you get that.
Okay. So,
I've had students that literally said, look, Miss Patton, school is not for me. At 16, I'm dropping out of school to go get my GED.
Yeah, because 16 is the last, once you get to be 16, you are no longer compulsory to go to public school anymore. Okay.
Right.
So Professor Cassius says, yep, fake diplomas. They continue into special ed in community colleges. That's crazy.
They can continue into special ed in community colleges.
So, I mean,
now the flip side to that.
I was about to say, there is
a flip side to that.
Yes, there is. Let's talk about that too.
The flip side is, if you have a child who did very well in school but still had this IEP. Okay, for instance, my little sister had an IEP in school. She's also a college graduate.
Okay.
And that was because she took regular classes just with extra supports in class. However, because she had that IEP, she was able to obtain scholarships to go to college on her IEP.
Okay. Did not know that.
Yes, there are scholarships available for students with disabilities, not just at the college level, Mary. These kids have, those IEPs equal money all the way around, okay? And some parents don't even know that. There are quite a few parents who know that they don't want their child to get off their IEP because they will lose benefits. Okay. There are parents who keep those IEPs in place because they get a check for that.
Yeah, well, it was funny. When we were going through this whole thing with the IEP, I went and applied to get a check, and it was like, child, no, child, sit down. And then we went
depending on the severity of the disability, they can get a check for that.
Well, we went like 3 different times, and each time they was like, "Listen, Linda, we're not giving you no money." Ain't nothing wrong with your child. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you one of my.
But oh yes, you can get it for something so simple. This is another portion of my business because I do this so.
Go ahead.
This is so. I do this so much. It was one of those things that got under my skin because this is extra of what I do on the job that I really don't even have to do. It's not part of my job description. Well, somebody should be paying me for this, but
that's why Janie Patton Inc. exists.
Yes, that is why Janie Patton Inc. exists.
Talk about how to get in touch with you. Are you able before you tell that story? Are you able to help parents who are not in the same state as you?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, good. Okay, so go ahead. So this is something that's not part of your job description. This is something that you do. You're on.
Okay, so I have a number of parents who will bring me Social Security paperwork. They want that paperwork filled out and they need a copy of their IEP attached and faxed over to Social Security so that they can either continue to receive benefits or begin to receive benefits for their child's IEP. I don't necessarily have to do that.
Right.
So that's another service.
That's one of your services. So when I was applying, Professor Cassius, and Div, you might have been around when this went down. We might have been rolling back then. I remember my daughter being, I remember a teacher referring my daughter. Basically, they threatened me with, either take her to get an IEP or we'll have to put her out of school. They recommended a psychiatrist, not a psychologist, a psychiatrist. And I took my daughter to a psychiatrist. I will never, I know we've been rolling for some years. You've been around almost since as long as I've had them doggone people. Anyway, I took my daughter to this man. I'm not gonna call his name on this live because this is actually a broadcast for public consumption. But I took her to him, the Miami Shores, and he evaluated my baby. We had a couple visits. And when I went back for the results, he said to me, I don't find anything necessarily wrong with her per se, but I do recommend, I can write you a prescription, and it was for Ritalin. He said, you usually see this behavior in boys, but I can write her a prescription so it will be easier for the teachers to teach her. And I remember being so offended to my core. You want me to give my baby poison so it can be easier for the teachers? I didn't even know what to do. I was shaking. I was embarrassed. I was scared. I didn't know. I just did not know what I should be doing. And I just didn't know. And I feel like if he had given me, if he had offered me, if he had a better bedside manner, if he had been able to offer me some ways that this could really benefit her, if he had been able to say to me, if he had the presence of mind, the care and concern, I remember that. Yeah, we none of us, everybody was like, hell nah. Because at home, we weren't seeing what the teachers were seeing in the classroom with my daughter. But I think if he had been able to, in hindsight, if he had been able to say to me, listen, I see some behaviors here. There is a possibility that but if we catch it now, we might be able to correct this. That's a different conversation than I'm gonna give you a prescription for a child that ain't got no problems. Because when we went to the Social Security Administration to try and get a check, they was like, ain't nothing wrong with her. Ain't nothing wrong with her. I'm like, but they said on here, and the doctors was like, ain't nothing wrong with her. I'm like, but see right here on the papers, and then on this page, and then ain't nothing wrong with her. God gave up. I just let that go. I tried 3 different times at 3 different junctures in her school career. And they was like, ain't nothing wrong with her. And I'm like, then why the hell does she have an IEP? What are we doing? Help me understand this. What's the problem? Somebody somewhere ain't telling the truth.
Yeah, somebody wasn't telling you the truth. Yes, they could have gave you that money. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gave her no IEP.
Girl, that's what I thought, but they was not.
I'm just letting you know. And now, hence, Jaime Patton Inc. will make sure that every time that fax go through, you get a check too.
Girl,
because
so y'all hear that?
Like you said, it's all about wording. It's the proper wording that you put on those applications and the documentation that you can provide of how this disability impacts that child's learning and how it will affect them in the future of being able to communicate and work with others. So if you're dealing with a child, like for instance, I have a child who's bipolar, and severely bipolar. So highly unlikely this child will actually hold down a real job for a steady period of time because he has a hard time interacting with people on a consistent basis. So yeah, he can get a check for that because he's probably gonna need one anyway in the long run because he's gonna need to provide for himself.
Correct. So yeah, this was this school journey. I'm telling you, honest to God, I'm telling you, if I had my druthers, that no child of mine, whether it's one I gave birth to or one I married into or one that mine had, I just wouldn't. I have no confidence in the school system.
Also with that IEP, there are other options for those children. They have schools that are designed for specific disabilities. They have private schools. They have home schools, they have online programs, and they offer special ed services as well. And a lot of people don't even realize that with that IEP, you can take it and apply for a scholarship to put your child in a private school that will benefit his or her strengths rather than, judging a fish on its ability to climb a tree.
Right. Rather than play to the weakness. So Professor Cassius says, don't say that's sis therapy. I'm not sure what you're talking about right there. And JT said, that's me too, bipolar documented on papers. Hey, whatever floats your boat, buddy. I personally believe, and this is just my belief because I don't have this issue, but what I have come to understand and in my own research is that particular disorder, that particular imbalance can be addressed with diet and exercise primarily. The bipolar disorder. That is almost. So my understanding is that the only real condition that a person is born with is schizophrenia. The rest of it is environmental and nurture versus nature. Yep. So this is not something that most people are born with. It's somebody you came here fine. I believe a lot of our children suffer from PTSD, even those who don't grow up in the hood. Yes. Again, being told you're bad, being exposed to constant triggers and not recognizing that these are triggers, being made to feel less than, looking around, even at the culture that we live in nowadays, looking around at that, being exposed to that. It has to be at some point you begin to internalize things that people don't even say directly to you. So that's your turn to speak.
You're absolutely right, Mary. Those things definitely play a big factor. The environment, the way that child is being raised, the amount of time that a parent puts in with the child, the amount of time a parent spends advocating for their child. But like you said, telling a child that they're bad as opposed to this incident took place at school and I'm just going to advocate for my child and let my child know that I'm on his side or I'm on her side. I have her back. Yes, it may not have been the ideal situation for that child. They may have done something wrong, but as opposed to saying, now what your bad ass done did now.
Right.
Have a conversation with your child about what's expected and what's acceptable and what's not. Not name calling, because name calling attaches labels to those children.
That's real. So if names were not important, we wouldn't have them.
Absolutely.
What you call yourself, what you answer to. Dr. Don is okay. A couple things coming up in the comments over here. What you answer to matters. And if your parents are speaking things into your life, you know, words matter. Energy matters. So the things that are coming out of your mouth started in your heart, and you handing that to your kids. You're handing that to your children. So JT says true. He changed his diet, had far less episodes. Edlore says epigenetics. We all have PTSD in our genes from slavery. Absolutely. And Dr. Don is saying, yes, diet, exercise, environmental, and entertainment. Things like that entertainment thing is big. That's a big deal.
Those subliminal messages are huge.
Shoot. Makisha is making another point, your hometown. She said the children in Flint with lead infected bodies need you. And I remember, so in Miami, before I left Miami, I was working at a nonprofit, and one of our programs was a lead abatement program, because there was plenty of research that demonstrated that lead in water, lead in the clothing that certain parents wore, like parents that would, like, they worked around gasoline stations or mechanic shops and all these kinds of things. If there was asbestos in the house, those kinds of things, it led in older homes, like in the paint chips, the children were eating paint chips. There was a whole, FIU did this study. There was a whole study, and our agency, most of our money came from the feds for lead abatement programs. And lead lead was used so prolifically. So it was everywhere. It was in the gas. It was in, like you said, household appliances. It was in the silverware. It was in the drinkware. It was everywhere. And children who have lead poisoning, no matter how small it is, they have cognition issues. They have behavioral issues. They're more prone to have respiratory issues. They also, it was more difficult to teach them. It was more difficult to teach them because they just couldn't learn the way that other children did. They had mental impairments.
Cognitive deficits.
Yes,
it was all of these things.
Absolutely. And this was all from lead poisoning. And that back then, my understanding was that this was not necessarily reversible once it was in the body. I don't believe that. I don't believe that to be true. But heavy metals have been known to cause birth defects, as well as, you know, ongoing medical maladies in these children. So you got a kindergartner, oh yeah, in your makeup, all that waterproof makeup, that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was everywhere. And you know, that was one of our issues. And now here we're talking about Flint, Michigan. It's so bad that the water ain't even clear. And y'all ain't finna get
You do realize this has been going on since 2014.
I do realize that, but y'all is not finna get me in no political debate tonight.
Don't get me started. You know not to get me started.
We may have to come back for that show. That's a
whole nother conversation to be had.
That's a whole other conversation. You know, that's something else altogether. That like there is so much outward open evilness in that I can't have that conversation tonight. We can't do that tonight. We can't do that because we ain't got enough time. We got 5 minutes to wrap up this show.
But just so you know, Mary, I did want to share this because I feel like that's the other part of why I had to do this program. I had to start this company. I had to make sure that I got as much information out to people as possible, knowing their options, their choices, their benefits.
Yeah.
Having a child with an IEP is not all negative. It's just knowing your rights and responsibilities to managing a child with an IEP, and knowing that they're not stuck in the public school system. My own child is 7 years old. He does not attend public school. I teach in public school, but my child does not go to public school.
Right.
So, and honestly, my child is 2 grades advanced. He's 7, but he's in the 4th grade.
Oh,
so
wow.
there really isn't a public school that will serve him without putting him back a grade or two based on age.
Right. Right.
So here I am out here looking for options for my own gifted child. And I said, you know what? I need to be doing this for everybody else too.
I love
because
it.
we
I
have
love it.
Too many children slipping through the cracks for information that's just not known.
So tell everybody how they can reach you. In fact, when you get a chance, like when we're done with this, I want you to copy and paste it into the chat as well. But tell everyone how they can reach you if they need help, if they need a consultation, because I know that's one service. If someone needs to call you up and talk to you for a few minutes, if someone needs somebody to actually walk them through the process of figuring out, can a parent request an IEP?
Yes.
Okay, so if someone needs somebody who can walk them through, that's a whole other kind of service. If your child already has an IEP, do you evaluate them? Like, can you look at a child's IEP and maybe their grades and make a recommendation to a family? You know, like tell us what your services are and how people can reach you.
All of what you just mentioned, on top of assisting with scholarships, assisting with transitions. From middle school to high school, from high school to college or a vocational program, or just to the workforce. I have different partners that I connect with and work with that offer transportation, soft skills workshops, just teaching children on their level how to operate in life and using their skills as strengths. And again, not judging a fish by its ability to climb a tree. So, just being able to offer those different options to people so that they know you're not stuck. You're not in that realm of fighting that battle that Miss Julie with her wonderful self came on to explain her issues with the public school. You don't have to fight that battle. You can pull your child out of public school with that IEP and place them somewhere else. And a lot of places do offer scholarships to those children with IEPs. So you can reach me at 307-655-7340, or you can follow me on Facebook on my business page at Jaime Patton Inc.
Jaime Patton Inc. The link you sent me didn't work, so I'm gonna need you to post that link, a working link, so people can pull that up and contact you so they can get some of this help. I tell you, this has been such a good conversation. It's really difficult for me to shut it down at this point, but I've literally got 1 minute to tell y'all. So y'all know how to reach Jaime. Listen, Jaime is actually a colleague from the money school. You know, when you were in school, whether you had an IEP or not, no one taught you about money, and you're not going to convince me that they did. I don't care about your econ class, because that's not money. All of that is theory. So if you're not learning how money really works, if you haven't learned how money really works, then I am encouraging you in the strongest terms and in no uncertain terms to go to www.facebook.com/groups/The Money School and join the money school, so you can learn the real truth about money, what it is and how it works, so you can learn the real truth about personal credit and about business credit. I also want to encourage you to reach out to me and learn. Let me help you understand how you can get your hot little hands on up to $150,000 in business lines of credit. What? Yes, I'm teaching a class. The class starts this Saturday, the 19th. Whoa. Yes, that's this Saturday, the 19th is the first day of class. If you, I'm going to walk you through the steps to qualify and begin the process of approval for business lines of credit up to $150,000. The class only 5 weeks long, so don't panic. Also make sure that you are saving the date. January 31st, we are doing our launch-a-thon. We have a launch-a-thon for a premium product that we have coming through the money school called 8.9. And if you're here, I want you to connect with me. Click my name up there, Ayah Ellis. Make sure that you're following me so that you get the notifications when I go live. I have another show that I do on Sundays called Moneyfest Destiny. It's a different kind of Bible study. And we talk about what God has to say about money, because the only thing discussed in the Bible more than money is God. So I would say that's pretty important. Jamie, it has been my absolute pleasure. I am so happy that you joined me tonight. I'm really looking forward to having you on again so that we can talk about some more things, because I feel like we rushed through this. Even though I know we didn't, there's just so much more to discuss. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you, this work that you're doing. I hope you get a whole lot of calls from people, because folks need this. I remember my struggles when my children were growing up, okay? Well, that has been all, y'all. This has been Bag Lady Revived. I am your host, Celebrity Mary, and I bid all of you adieu. You know what? I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. Peace.
Thank you so much, Mary. Y'all have a good one.
It is my pleasure. Good night.